Good afternoon and welcome to Only the Truth, a Mary MacIntosh true crime podcast where we dive deep into the criminal underworld through the lens of the best-selling Mary MacIntosh legal thrillers. I'm your host, Maureen Meehan, and today we're exploring Dating Game, the latest Mary MacIntosh novel by Maureen Meehan, a chilling psychological thriller inspired by the real-life crimes of Rodney Alcala, the famous dating game killer. But this is more than just a story. It's a harrowing exploration of the mind of a predator, the legacy of his victims, and the relentless pursuit of justice by Mary MacIntosh and the FBI. Dating Game begins with a case that intertwines Mary MacIntosh's sharp legal mind and her new role as an FBI consultant under the profiler John Douglas. Together, they're drawn into a labyrinth of lies, manipulation, and murder when a new serial killer emerges, one who eerily mirrors Rodney Alcala's methods. So, the real Rodney Alcala was a photographer and a contestant on the Dating Game, and he used his charm and his wit to lure women into being models for him for his photography. And this allowed him to isolate women into remote places in California, Utah, Wyoming, New York, and I believe Florida, where he would lure these women away and photograph them, get them relaxed, and then he would asphyxiate them when they weren't expecting it, revive them back to life, if you can believe that, then asphyxiate them to death, then sexually mutilate them or sexually rape them, and then stage them in odd poses and photograph them. Well, Rodney Alcala was a real serial killer, and they believe that he may be responsible for over 110 killing of women, from young girls to older women, and he did this in 5 states. He did it over the course of the 1970s primarily, soon in time, kind of mirroring the time of Ted Bundy. He was very much like Ted Bundy, very charming and witty, and he was able to lure victims away with a muse, if you will. So back to the book Dating Game by Mary MacIntosh. This is a copy of the book that I crafted a few months ago. I take my fictional protagonist, Mary MacIntosh, and have Rodney Alcala in Sheridan, Wyoming, where Mac was a prosecutor. Now, this isn't too far-fetched in that Rodney Alcala did kill a woman near my hometown of Sheridan, Wyoming, I think in 1978. And I have dedicated a portion of this novel to all of his victims, but her included, based on the fact that this happened in my backyard when I was growing up. I was a teenager at that time, and this girl was a teenager who was murdered outside of Sheridan, Wyoming. I'm going to read you an excerpt of my book. This wasn't just a photograph. It was a statement, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Mac stared at it, the pieces shifting in her mind. She knew that she was running out of time. This is a pivotal part of the novel because more and more women are showing up dead, and Mac needs to solve this before it continues. It reflects the real-life terror of Alcala's victims. Like Alcala, the killer in the Dating Game, he used his charm to lure women into a deadly trap. But in Maureen Meehan's My Novel isn't just about that chase. It's also about the human cost of that chase. Mac grapples with her personal demons, balancing her role as a mother, a wife, and a consultant while staring into the abyss of human depravity. As you read my novel, The Dating Game, a Mary MacIntosh novel, you'll notice the marvelous care that I put into weaving this craft and fiction. The killer's profile is eerily similar to Alcala's, a predator who used his intellect to outsmart authorities for years. But it's also a call to action, reminding us of how resilient survivors can be and the ongoing fight for justice. And when I say survivors, the woman who picked him on the real-life Dating Game TV contestant show, she got that weird feeling in her stomach when she was going to go out on a date with Rodney Alcala, and she canceled the date, even though she did pick him on the dating game, and it saved her life. So it does go on to the fight for justice for women who use their judgment and wisdom to not get engaged in people who are serial killers because they are tricky people. I highly recommend this book. It's a harrowing yet gripping exploration of crime, justice, and survival. And for those of you who are true crime enthusiasts like me, it will weave you into questioning how often we truly see the predators hiding among us. They hide in plain sight every day. We might pass them in a grocery store. We might be standing in line at a theater and next to a predator. We just don't even know it, which is it opens your eyes. I've always told my daughter and girls in her class, when you go off to college, be very aware of your surroundings. If your car is parked at a shopping mall parking lot, have your keys out ready to go. I have my daughter have an alarm, which is like a grenade, and you can pull the pin and it makes a very loud sound. I carry one as well. I got them for all of her National Charity League class, and I gave them a safety class on always be with a buddy in college. Never walk home from a party or a gathering or class alone. Make sure you have the buddy system in place because there are predators on college campuses as well. I mean, look at Ted Bundy. He was at University of Washington in Seattle. He killed a sorority girl, a Chi Omega, who was walking home. He lured her in and killed her. So I would like to explore a few of the excerpts from the novel that I'm going to read to you because I think that it tells you a little more about this is. First of all, my dedication. Waiting Game is dedicated to all victims of Rodney Alcala, Ted Bundy, the Zodiac Killer, Red Hands Killers, and all other people who feel the wounds of serial killers. It is truly remarkable that there are so many victims. It is not surprising that most serial killers are men, but it is surprising that they can maim at such a high level for such a long period of time without being detected. The novel is also dedicated to the force of people who seek justice for these victims. You are the true heroes. Chapter 1 starts with, "You are so beautiful. May I take your photograph?" This was usually the beginning and the end for the victims of the dating game killer Rodney Alcala in the 1970s. He was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, made his way to California at some point in his lifetime, and that's where he was diagnosed with the antisocial personality disorder. And he was discharged from the Army as a result of that, had a mental breakdown, was in a psych ward, one of which I worked in, but he was discharged from the psych ward, and right after his discharge, in the late 1960s, he went on a killing spree that lasted until about 1980. Hundreds of women that were killed. This was a terrible situation. Ted Bundy was primarily similar, and he used his charm and deception to lure his victims, feigning an injury like wearing a cast or a sling to gain sympathy from women who would assist him with tasks like taking his groceries in from his car. He would get them into secluded areas or into his apartment, and he would brutally attack them, and disfigure them, dismember them. He was something else. So in many other fugitives involved in the multiple homicides remain at large. The Zodiac Killer is one of them. He's been on top of the America's Most Wanted list for decades, since the 1960s, as is the Red Hands Killer. The person or persons who murder the missing and murdered Indigenous women in North America, barely any of them have been prosecuted. And there have been thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of Native American women who have been killed. And this started the Red Hands movement that exists today. It's a grassroots movement that's growing in popularity. With respect to the Mary MacIntosh double, I have the true FBI profiler that worked on the Zodiac case, John Douglas, involved in the investigation of this, as he was the lead FBI psychological profiler for the Zodiac Killer. And he was well known. He knew all about Rodney Alcala. He was asked to investigate the dating game killer as well as Ted Bundy. So this man is a very well versed profiler for the FBI. He's worked on a lot of high end cases. And now, fictionally, in my novel, the dating game Mary MacIntosh novel, I have John and Matt teaming up to to solve the dating game killer in a Mary MacIntosh novel. Reading again chapter 19 and looking at a shared fixation on Devil's Tower among these factions, meeting the dating game killer, the Red Hands killer, and the Blood Crescent killer, researching the history of this Native American site at Devil's Tower in northeastern Wyoming. And I think I'm uncovering stories of ritual and violence gathering tied to the Blood Crescent cult group of the Freemasons, not pronounced to John Anberg, her husband at the time. We only have 6 days to formulate a plan before the crescent moon, Briggs said. I feel like we need to hash out a plan that includes the FBI, the Army Guards, state and local law enforcement, so that we're prepared for this allegedly invite-only gathering to Devil's Tower. Here's from another chapter. The scene feels staged and something ritualistic. The killers had left items tied to their identities: an eagle feather for the Red Hand killer, a crescent emulant left by the Crescent Moon killer, and the Zodiac Killer. There's a written note, a map, owing to Devil's Tower but to a hidden cave inside the tower, and clues that in a meeting arranged by the killers, a clandestine council held under the Crescent Moon, where they plan to reaffirm their vow to guard these hidden secrets. Matt, driven by her intense need to protect others, realizes that she is stepping into a trap, but she feels like she has no choice. So I'm going to read you now a few of the reviews that I received on the dating game, a Mary MacIntosh thriller. This was from Megan Brain, December 23rd, 2024. A chilling twist on the dating game. In the dating game, author Maureen Ann serves up a spine-tingling fictional thriller that blends real-life serial killers with imaginary ones. This Mary MacIntosh novel takes readers on a wild ride, mixing the infamous Ted Bundy and Rodney Alcala with two fictional counterparts, one non-fictional, the Zodiac Killer, and then Red Hands Killer. Lehan's story is a creepy cocktail of true crime and imagination. She cleverly plays on the similarities between Bundy and Alcala, their charm, good looks, and knack for blending in while introducing her own sinister creations. The result? A foursome of killers that's almost too much to handle. It's like a twisted version of the dating game, pun intended, but instead of winning a date, the prize is, well, let's not spoil it. While the premise is intriguing, juggling 4 serial killers might be biting off more than the average reader can chew. Still, for fans of crime with a fictional twist, Dating Game offers a unique and unsettling take on the genre. Just don't read it before bed or before your next flying date. Here's another review. These are all 5-star reviews. This one is from Michael Cavaccini. The reviews can be found on Amazon and other sites. This was January 2nd, 2025. In Dating Game, Maureen Ann deftly brings to life a nightmarish tale that will keep you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. The chilling novel delves into the darkest corners of the human psyche, exploring the sinister activities of some of history's most notorious serial killers. Meehan's novel artfully juxtaposes the real-life horrors committed by Rodney Alcala and Ted Bundy with equally terrifying fictional creations, the Zodiac Killer and the Red Hands Killer. The interplay between fact and fiction makes this book intense and compelling. It's not just a narrative of murder and mayhem. It's a profound examination of the twisted charm and charisma that these killers wielded to ensnare their unsuspecting victims. One of the standout aspects of Dating Game is Meehan's skill in bringing her characters to life. Rodney Alcala and Ted Bundy, both chillingly real and disturbingly charming, are portrayed with an eerie authenticity. Their ability to blend into society, deceive their victims, and avoid suspicion is depicted with unnerving detail. The inclusion of the Zodiac Killer and Red Hands Killer adds another layer of terror, making the reader question the fine line between reality and fiction. From the very first page, Meehan plunges her readers into a world where the line between truth and fiction is blurred. Spending time with Mac is such a delight that, frankly, some readers may wish there was more on the bone for this. as it is more of a novella. But nevertheless, while this relatively scant time to spend with our favorite Wyoming prosecutor, every page is a thrill and a privilege. Hopefully that hawkish Mary MacIntosh will be back soon so that no one goes into withdrawal. And one last web. This is a 5-star from Alexis, December 28, 2024. Dating Game delves into the horrifying legacy of real-life serial killers, including Rodney Alcala, known as the dating game killer. The novel follows prosecutor Mary MacIntosh as she investigates crimes inspired by the notorious murders, uncovering chilling connections between the modus operandi and her jurisdiction. The story's foundation in true crime gives it an edge, offering chilling insights into the psychology of serial killers. Meehan masterfully contrasts Mac's strengths and vulnerabilities, crafting a protagonist who is both relatable and inspiring. The novel's exploration of Alcala's crimes and his eerie charisma, particularly his unsettling appearance in the dating game, adds a haunting layer to the narrative. The interweaving of Ted Bundy and the Zodiac Killer's crimes enriches the story, providing a historical and psychological depth that elevates it beyond a standard thriller. This book is perfect for true crime fans and psychological mystery lovers. Dating Game is a powerful and unsettling exploration of crime, justice, and the resilience of survivors. Meehan's ability to navigate such dark material while crafting an engaging narrative makes this novel stand out in the Mary MacIntosh series. This book was amazing. I would reread it. So thank you for joining me today on the truth, only the truth, and where the truth needs to be uncovered, and we have Mary MacIntosh at the helm to do it. I'm Maureen Meehan. Thank you for joining me today, and stay safe out there, and continue to follow my books on MaureenMeehanBooks.com. Thank you.